Hello. Please take your seats. Shh. Thank you, Nella and Aurora, for the help. Shh. Okay. Thank you. Welcome to People Unlimited. Happy Saturday to everyone. Okay. We got a big day ahead. Uh, very big day. I'm very looking forward to what's going to happen here today. I have gotten some insights to what's going to happen just right now, and I just want to tell you that it's very exciting. I was just talking to our guest speaker, and we've been talking since he got here early, and he did say something just now that might have seemed something superficial, but I'm not taking it superficially, casual, Kenneth. He said, if I'm going to do things, I want to do them right. And I just want to tell you what he's about to present to us. He's done very right. And he's getting better and better. And something that we don't want to not get used to, it's getting better and better. And we should all be getting better and better in every way possible. And so I'm very looking forward to hearing him today. We have a very dynamic introduction of him that I'm very wanting you guys to get started now, see. And so I'm gonna let that play first so you get a feeling for him. You've seen him around, but this is gonna give you a good insight to him. And then I'm gonna tell you more about him.
I truly believe that it's absolutely possible to live forever with the energy of a 29. The great beauty of longevity is there's always new doors to open, new adventures, new excitements. Perhaps the most exciting part of an unlimited lifespan is the opportunity of using your brain to explore all sorts of new venues. The key to life is to always enjoy every moment as it appears. I'm on a mission. I believe that everyone, absolutely everyone, should live forever. Welcome. This is Viva Spot.
Everyone should live better and not die and not age. And I'm very looking forward to this. He also just said to me, these videos that this one and the other ones, they happened last year. And he's like, I'm already so much better. Everything has already changed. And so I'm very looking forward to hearing you. I mean, I'm repeating myself, but I really am looking forward to this. I did get, into this information from him, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the information, the details of how he's done this. So I'm gonna tell you more about him. Kenneth Scott is an entrepreneur, investor, biotech enthusiast, investing in startups and identifying breakthrough technologies that enhance longevity. He has invested seed funding in several longevity biotech firms. He closely follows and evaluates these companies for their scientific and business leadership, as well as e-market potential. He continually researches the new startups to locate new opportunities for investment. So without any further ado, please welcome to the stage Kenneth Scott.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to welcome me like that. It's a bit of a shock for me to be here because I had a call from James and Bernie a few weeks ago, and they said, why don't you come and talk to us? And I'm thinking, Scottsdale, Arizona, the center of longevity? And they think they can learn anything from me? Just incredulous. So it's really an honor to be able to talk with you a little bit this afternoon. And I hope that some of what I have to say can help you. I'm doing a few things that are a little bit abnormal, as we talked yesterday. Like that? Okay, got it. So, yeah, okay, got it. Yeah. So essentially, uh, what I feel I can do is tell you a little bit about the different things that I'm doing, which I feel are really making me younger. And I want to do that by going through a little bit of preparatory discussion, and then I'll get into those details. And so the talk is really take control of your body and rejuvenate. And you may notice that that take control of your body is a theme that was very strong last evening, wasn't it? And so that is really what I think is so important. But I think it's equally important to understand that the target is rejuvenation. Now, I have to get something to move forward here. Yes. What do we mean by rejuvenation? So I'm looking at a situation where we do something like that, okay? That's what we mean by rejuvenation. Don't you think that's a good target? That's where we want to be, okay? And that's what I'm working on, and I think I'm making progress on it. So I think that's really what we want to do. And what do I mean? Well, rejuvenating, what we want to do really is get back to a very early state where we had our peak performance, right? And what did we have when we had that peak performance? Well, our minds worked well. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced a moment where you couldn't remember a word or forgot where you put something down. Okay? We need to recover the days when that didn't happen. There we are. We want the body that we had when we were in our younger days, when we were at our peak performance. You know, we don't really want to be using canes, stumbling a little bit when we go upstairs, things like that. We want to get back to where we had that body. And we want the energy. Hey, do you remember when you were maybe going to college and you were partying and you forgot to go to the classes sometimes, and all of a sudden the exams are coming up, and hey, you pull an all-nighter. Pulled an all-nighter lately? Probably not. So what I want to do is take you forward to a thought experiment. And you've all heard of Albert Einstein. You all probably know that he developed the theory of relativity. But did you know that he actually did that in his mind? He did that through thought experiments, not in a laboratory, not doing complicated scientific analyses, but he did that in his mind. And I want to bring you into a thought experiment. I'd like you all to join me. I want you to think back to when you were in your early 20s. Put yourself in that space. Yeah. So one of the things that you had, as I said, was energy, massive energy. Okay, there we are. Now we got energy. Well, you know, some of it's solar, whatever. So think back to the energy levels that you had in your 20s when you went skiing all day, partying all night, and still got up in the morning feeling alert and full of life. Think about the mood that you had when you were in your early 20s. Just always happy, right? You're in your early 20s, everything's okay. It's great. That's the way you want to be. You want to have that mood. Think about the excitement that you enjoyed every day of your life. Okay, every day was fun. It was new. It was really great. And that's what you want. And what about the future? Well, the future was yours. Do you remember that feeling? Now, don't you really want to be back there? Put yourself in that position. Think about what it was like then. That's where you want to be. Okay? Isn't that nice? Just contemplate that for a few seconds. Nice feeling, isn't it? Okay. The other thing that happens if we can get ourselves back there is it turns out that we've solved some problems. Do you remember when you're in your early 20s, you worried about cardiovascular disease? Did you ever worry about cancer, obesity, retirement, all those age-related diseases? No, you didn't worry about those when you're in 20s. Now, that's the great target for so many people today. It's going after increasing health span. You get rid of that when you're in your 20s. We don't worry about dying when we're in our 20s. We're not worried about health span, or lifespan, rather. We've just, you know, we're just there. We forget about aging gracefully. You're a 25-year-old and you're worried about aging gracefully? I don't think so, right? And we're not interested in age reversal. We're there. We've made it. So all these problems that are really attracting huge amounts of investment capital just disappear if we can solve the problem of getting us back into our 20s. Uh-oh, reality check. That's a thought experiment. Can we do it? Can we really do it? We're immortal. If we're there, can we achieve it? Well, rejuvenation is possible. I firmly believe that. And why do I believe that? Well, am I standing in the wrong place? Yes, I do believe this is firmly possible. And in a moment, we're going to show you on the slide, because some interesting things are happening in biotech, which are going to get us there. Okay, and here are the things that have happened. You may have heard of Yamanaka, a Japanese scientist who in 2006 took human cells, adult cells, and he tweaked 4 genes. They're listed there: OC4, OCT4, KLF4, SOX2, and CMyC. And tweaking those genes, he took those cells that were adult cells and reverted them to an embryonic stage. Isn't that amazing? In 2012, he got the Nobel Prize for that. And as a result of that, we have what I call a proof of concept. We can make things, we can make human things, parts of humans, younger. That's a proof of concept, okay? And already around the world, dozens of labs are working on that proof of concept to deliver for us and for all humanity the ability to reverse our lives back into that 20 somewhat age frame. Now, that sounds a bit far-fetched maybe, okay? So they did that with a cell or two? What does that mean? Well, I think it's similar to what's happened in flying. I was formerly an aeronautical engineer, and so I tend to think in terms of what happened in the aerospace industry. In 1903, on December 17th, Wilbur and Orville Wright flew 852 feet. 852 feet. And you can see in the top right the image of the little rickety craft that they had, which we call the Wright Flyer. And, you know, the world didn't pay any attention. They got virtually no press. But a mere 56 years later, I flew across the Atlantic in a jetliner, Comet 2, probably one of the first 500 or 1,000 people to fly across the Atlantic in a jetliner. Okay? I had actually previously flown a couple of times. The first flight I had was in 1952 in a biplane. So, what a change that we've seen in our life. Now we can fly almost anywhere. Everybody flies everywhere. Yesterday morning, I woke up in Saratoga Springs where we had 6 inches of snow. I was here with you last evening at 7 o'clock. And what is the difference between that Wright Flyer and that aircraft that brought me here yesterday? Amazing engineering advances. Okay? And today we're doing bioengineering to achieve that same kind of hope, that same kind of delivery of the proof of concept, which shows that we can reverse the life of cells. So I firmly believe that I will become 20 again in all manifestations. And the only trick, of course, is that this bioengineering is going on at the moment, and I need to stay alive long enough to reap the benefits of that, right? Now, how do we achieve rejuvenation? First of all, I think we have to develop our own philosophy, establish our tenets, our beliefs of how and what we expect to achieve. And we were talking about that a bit last night. And Bernie in particular was talking about she has established mind control to deal with the issues that she had. So we need to establish that mind control of our bodies to develop the ability to move forward. Once we've done that, we need to act on those beliefs. As Bernie has done, and I'm sure many of you have done, we need to act on those beliefs. We have to invest the time and the money to achieve what we believe is possible. We'll get the returns. And then, of course, we're going to share those returns. Everything I do, I share. You may or may not think it's worth anything, but I'll share it with you and let you decide. Okay, so briefly, what have I done to create my program to be around so that I can, in fact, reap the benefits of this research which is going on? So my program for rejuvenation has quite a number of different elements to it. And the first one is the one that we were discussing last night, which is so important. It's controlling your mind and controlling your body. You need to believe. If you don't believe and you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. So as I say, rejuvenation is the target, and you have to believe that and get your mind to tell your body that it's going to get there. That's the first thing. How do you get there? Well, as I say, we've got a bit of a holding game here until the full results of the proof of concept reach us. So there are a number of steps. One of them, certainly one of the very important ones, is nutrition. And I don't need to tell you people that. I just look around this room, you know how to eat and not eat. For the record, my personal nutrition is a whole food plant-based diet. I don't add sugar, I don't add salt, I can't eat gluten. I eat organic food if at all possible. And about once a week, I will have a serving of salmon, wild caught. The next thing that's on the list is exercise, and I think probably all of you are doing exercise. I try and do half an hour of something like Pilates every morning. I try and walk for about half an hour. I try to make sure I get my 10,000 steps a day in. Fitbit tells me if I don't. I really am worried about toxicity. We've got serious issues in this country and much of the world, so I'm very concerned that I drink pure water, I don't put things on my skin. Most people are stunned when I tell them that I don't use soap. I don't use shampoo. Think about how many animals in the wild go to CVS to get the latest shampoo and hair conditioner. Isn't necessary. And you don't stink if you eat the right kind of food. Aesthetics. I think it's important to look good in order to feel good. And you see that in this group. People here take a lot of care for their personal appearance. I happen to be a person that always liked to buy clothes, even as a child in school. I think clothing is good. I think aesthetics is important. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. I think it's important to keep working. It's inconsistent to be immortal and to retire. And so I tend to think of retirement as an age-related disease. It's important to measure your progress so you can see, what's going on as you do various things to try and promote your longevity and your immortality. You probably all take supplements. I do. I'm not going to get you into the details of what I take, but they're important. But where I want to focus is on what I call interventions. And interventions are the things that we do with the hope that they will, in fact, bring us that rejuvenation. My interventions, I weigh a number of factors. I worry about the safety and the risk. If I'm going to do something to my body, I don't want to wipe myself out and miss my immortality. I worry about efficacy, like if it's going to work, I'd like it to work now rather than 20 years from now. I worry about the duration. I don't like to get onto things that I have to do for the rest of my life. Somehow or other, that isn't a solution. I worry about cost. I'm fortunate that I don't have massive cost issues to deal with, but cost is always an issue. For example, well, I'll get to that example later. I worry about legal issues. There's a lot of control over what we can do to our bodies by the FDA and various other government agencies. So I worry about that, but only in the sense of how do I get around it? Okay? This is my body. It doesn't belong to the government of the United States or the state or any other country. It's my body. I want to be able to do what I can do to it myself. And then what I do is something that I do for myself, and that's what N equals 1 stands for. But a number of these things that I do, my wife also does, and that's when we have two. These aren't scientific experiments in the way that science experiments. These are the things I do for me. I'm very selfish about it. I want it to work for me, but if it works for me, I'm happy to tell you. I should probably state at this point, I am not a medical doctor. I am not licensed by any government or other agency to give you any medical advice or any advice on anything. I'm just telling you my experience. I'm going to talk to you about 4 interventions, 4 things that I've been doing to my body over the last year or so, a couple of years. These are just a few of many things that I do. I don't do one thing at a time and then another thing and then another thing. I do everything whenever it comes to me that it makes sense for me to do it. And I think there's a lot of symbiotic improvement as a result of that. I think these things work together better than if you do just one thing and then another thing. And so I don't have time for these long, drawn-out FDA approval type processes. We can come up with a solution that we feel is going to work, and we don't allow people to take that solution and apply it to themselves. Again, it's all N equal 1 or N equal 2, and do these things help me on my path? Here's the first of the interventions that I've been involved in the last couple of years. Amniotic exosomes. These are derived from amniotic fluid. It's filtered so that you have only small pieces, and those small pieces of the amniotic fluid are small enough that the body won't reject them. But if you think about what's in amniotic fluid, it's all that mass of chemicals that take a fertilized egg to a human being that is born. And we throw that away usually. So my wife and I get amniotic exosomes. Many thousands of people have received these. They're not FDA approved. They're not likely to be because every batch is different. The FDA wants everything to be pure and homogeneous. They're only available through physicians. They'll cost you about $1,000 or maybe $1,500 a treatment. They have to be stored and transported at minus 80 degrees centigrade. They're IV injected or perhaps injected directly into tissue. We take one or two, whoops, just go back here a second. The results that we've experienced have been interesting. My wife was poisoned 4 years ago by ciprofloxacin, also known as Cipro. It's a fluoroquinoline. Those are very, very dangerous antibiotics. Don't take them if you can possibly avoid it. And that's not medical advice, that's experience. Go on the internet and look up Floxed, F-L-O-X-E-D. She was damaged to the extent that her tendons became all seized up. She couldn't walk after 4 days. Her mind was turned into mush, just mush. So we've been fighting with that for 4 years. When we started her on the amniotic exosomes, 3 weeks after she started that, much of the pain in her tendons disappeared. I think it's helping me. The first time I had it, I just was on a euphoric high. It just was amazing. Subsequent treatments, I haven't experienced that, but I think that they do help. One of the things about the amniotic exosomes is we see in lab animal studies that if that lab animal is wounded, those exosomes will go to that site of the wound to cure it. Cavinson peptides. There's an Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology in St. Petersburg, Florida. Sorry, not Florida, Russia. This particular institute has been developing these peptides, which are known as Cavinson peptides after the head of the institute. They were developed to help with submariners who suffer from radiation quite badly if they're in the Russian submarine force. They don't have nearly the protection that our sailors do. And so they had problems with radiation sickness and so on. They also had the issue of trying to keep their fighter pilots active for an extra few years. It costs a fortune to train a fighter pilot, and if you can get a couple more years out of them, that's good. So they developed these peptides. Uh-oh. And these peptides, which are just little capsules that I take, my wife takes, we take about 10 different peptides every month, and we take them for about 10 days. So I'm seeing it here, but not there. Okay, that helps. Okay, so typically these peptides have 2 to 4 amino acids. They're very, very small peptides. I don't know if you know about amino acids and proteins and stuff, but proteins have typically dozens and dozens or hundreds of peptides in them. The peptides that are in this Cavinson peptide library only have 2 to 4 peptides. They are derived from livestock. They could be synthesized, but that would, of course, require FDA approval. This way, they can be imported from Russia. Who knows? One of the things that came out of their studies was that they found that this improved the 5-year survival rate for people, okay? Improved longevity. And there's a fellow in the United States by the name of Bill Lawrence, who's a PhD biochemist as well as a JD lawyer. He's running a program. My wife and I are part of that. For each peptide, it costs about $50 a month. We're using 6 to 10 peptides each. And the impact of this, for me, I think has generally been good. For my wife, there was a particular boost in her cognitive capabilities as a result of taking these peptides. She took the peptides, started a 10-day sequence, and on day 3, she said, I can think again. Okay? Now, she's still got a ways to go, We have problems with memory, but her executive function has improved quite significantly. And so, yeah, I think they work, you know. That's about a 3-year program. And the expectation is if you do it for 3 years, you will see the benefits for probably another 10 or 12 years. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is follistatin gene therapy. I don't know if you know what follistatin is. It's a protein that has 288 amino acids in it. It's great for building muscle, for rebuilding bone. I took a treatment of this last October 26th. I'm still in the middle of the study period for that treatment. Some of the results, well, first of all, we took some DEXA scans before and we've taken them since. They've been a bit inconclusive, although the latest DEXA scan showed that maybe my bones are just getting a little bit firmer. Otherwise, I have osteoporosis. It doesn't bother me, but that's what the doctors say. And they give me these big cover your ass type statements. You have to do this, this, and this. You've seen those. So what happens is that they're developed by a company called MiniCircle in Austin. We get the treatment in Honduras. I had it in October. My wife will get it next Wednesday. When I leave you, I fly tomorrow to Tampa, and my wife and I go to Honduras on Monday so that she can be treated on Wednesday. The treatment takes about 15 seconds. It's an injection of about 0.4 cc's of plasmid material. Plasmids are circles of DNA material. These circles contain the DNA to create follistatin. For this particular thing, we're in a clinical trial, so we're not paying for the medication. We pay for our transportation, we pay for our accommodation, and for the testing. This is incredible, and when it comes to cost, the alternate treatment for follistatin gene therapy at the moment is that which is offered by Liz Parrish's company, BioViva, in conjunction with IHS. They charge $500,000 for it. That was too expensive for me. I like this program. What has it done for me? Well, I have stents in my heart, and my heart was starting to get a little weak last year. I was getting worried that I might need some more. I had this gene therapy. I'm now running again. I'm shoveling heavy, wet snow, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't bother me a bit. It's really rebuilt my heart. In addition, I'm seeing much improved energy. Of course, if your heart's working better, you're going to have more energy. It may be that improved oxygen is what's causing the really improved energy level I have in my brain. My brain is just going just mad. I'm getting to all sorts of new business ventures and everything because I've got a lot of ideas. I interact with a lot of people, and we're just having fun, which is what it's all about, right? So we're going to try this with my wife next week, and hopefully we'll see the results of that. There is an actual measure of the amount of follistatin in the body or the blood, and a sample was taken prior to treatment and a subsequent one 3 months later. I don't have the results yet of that increase, but I suspect it's significant. And finally, I'm going to talk to you about an older technology, acupuncture. I'm big on acupuncture as of about a year ago. I had a serious digestive problem that was manifesting itself by problems in my skin. And those particular problems disappeared as a result of a sequence of acupuncture treatments. One of the things about acupuncture is it has no adverse side effects and it affects the whole body. Great stuff. This is now my go-to place for if I've got a problem. We're going to try acupuncture as step one. But even more exciting, I had a facelift last month. An acupuncture facelift. No cutting, no Botox, 50 needles in my face for an hour. I've had 9 of those. I have 1 more for this sequence. Now, we talked earlier about aesthetics. I did that because I want to look pretty, okay? And we talked about measuring. So how do I look? So yeah, I recommend acupuncture. If you've got a problem, that's where you want to go. So those are 4 of the treatments or interventions that I've been involved in recently. Whoops. So just to summarize, my interventions are concurrent, not serial. They're systemic. I like interventions where the whole body can decide what it's going to do with the input. So amniotic exosomes, for example, are small enough that they'll go through the body. Stem cells aren't. Stem cells have to be given locally. Amniotic exosomes are a little more interesting. I'm always concerned for safety. I really believe in the fact that these interventions all work together. The sum is more than the little individual pieces added up. And the costs vary. They're generally out of pocket in today's world. We're happy to pay for people to be sick and to keep them sick. We're just not happy to prevent them getting sick. Now, what's ahead for me? These are some of the interventions that I'm contemplating and that may occur for me this year. Blood, ozone, I had 1 treatment in January, and EBOO therapies, that's extracorporeal blood, oxygen, and ozonation. B cells, this is something you may not have heard. B cells are very small embryonic-like stem cells. They're in your blood, but they're inactive. They stop getting active or being active once you hit about 15 or 20 years of age. They can be reactivated, it seems, by taking some of your blood out, creating what's called PRP. I think maybe you know what that is, platelet-rich plasma, irradiating that PRP with laser lights of particular frequencies and sticking it back in the body. Safety? Hey, what could be safer? It's your blood. Cost? Obviously very small. So that's a treatment that's really new. There's only 1 or 2 places you can get it in the country. It hasn't yet been shut down by the FDA. I expect to get that treatment at a clinic in Panama in a couple of weeks' time because my wife and I are helping a clinic down there open their doors. So we're getting some free treatments and giving them feedback. I'm looking at therapeutic plasma exchange, TPE. Still got to study that a little bit more. To me, it makes all the sense in the world, and then they tell me I have to do it every 6 months. I don't think that makes sense, so I'm still trying to figure that one out. I already have done the acupuncture face list, but I may continue that. Hey, this is fun being pretty. We're using vibrating plate therapy for our bones, something that, as James was saying earlier, has developed out of the NASA program for dealing with astronauts who have spent months in space and they need to get those bones toughened up a bit when they come back to Earth's gravity. I'm expecting this year to have yet another follistatin gene therapy for some specific reasons related to my blood numbers that came out of that. I'm also expecting to get treated for testosterone, for telomerase, and for clotho. And you know what happens with someone like me? The people who develop these things, they just want me to be their lab rat. And I'm happy to be there, okay? I need some skeletal work done. The DEXA scans showed that I have a little bit of a curve to the right side on my spine. Well, that's doable. Let's fix that up. And then, this last one is interesting, fecal transplants, designed to reboost your digestive system. My digestive system is a mess. I had Lyme disease. I was treated with doxycycline, which is a terrible antibiotic, which more or less killed the Lyme disease. We can still see it in my blood if we look at it, but it's not bothering me. But it did muck up my microbiome. So I'm really seriously looking at fecal transplants. So there's lots more interventions coming down the road. It's fun rejuvenating, okay? And so what I feel has happened to me, particularly over the last couple of years, is that I have gotten younger. Now, you might ask, how old am I? Well, I don't like that phrase. In French, they say, quel âge as-tu? In German, wie viel Jahr haben Sie? I think in Spanish it's something like, how many years have you completed, right? Okay. Uh, why do we say old? I don't know. I don't. So if you ask that question, I'm going to tell you that I'm 20. Last year, I was 21, but I had a birthday. Now, unlike most 20-year-olds, I've been around the sun 80 times. Okay? And so I really feel that these programs of intervention that I've been involved in, plus that important mind work that Bernie was talking about last night, I really believe that that has made me so much younger. And I can see the difference in myself over the last few years. And so that's exciting. So I'm making progress already, but the big goal is the results of Yamanaka's study. Now, I just want to leave you with one additional thought. It's a challenge. I want you to move your focus. Forget about longevity. Get on to rejuvenation. Okay? That's where we need to go. We need to go to rejuvenation. And I think I'm done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Did I do that in 30 minutes?
Hi, Kenneth. We're going to take some. No, you did great. We wanted you to. Susanna, how long was that? He just wants to know. We stopped at 20 minutes because you were doing so great. So, does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Tim.
So you can also ask questions online. If you want to ask a question online, just raise your hand.
Thank you, Kenneth. You're an inspiration to us all. You've obviously kept your ear to the ground regarding interventions and have done your homework. And so amniotic exosomes you've done. So you probably did research, stem cells, exosomes, that whole issue. So there are a few of us in the room here that have done birth tissue stem cells. And I just wonder what your thoughts are regarding exosomes versus stem cells. And then regarding stem cells, embryonic stem cells, and then birth tissue stem cells, a few of us in the room have done.
Okay, I have to sort of defer on most of the stem cell questions. I haven't got into it in too much detail. I've listened to a number of talks from friends who have. What I don't like about stem cells in the first instance is there's this added problem that it's coming from somewhere else, usually, unless we take a fat sample and do the mycelial, I have trouble with that word, generation of stem cells of our own. But one of the problems with stem cells is that they sort of need to be administered to where you've got a problem. They're too big to go through the blood system completely. They can't get into the fine capillaries, they can't go through the lungs, they get hung up. And so their ability to be systemic in treatment is much more difficult. Amniotic exosomes, on the other hand, are systemically available because you take parts that are less than about 120 nanometers in size, and those will go through the lungs, they'll go through the capillaries at the end of your fingers and elsewhere. And I have a really strong personal belief that the body, if you give it resources, will distribute them as it needs to. So as an example of that, on the follistatin treatments that I've had, the expectation was that my muscles would get bigger. We haven't sort of seen much of that, but there was a very important muscle in my body that needed help. That was my heart. And I think that's where the follistatin has gone so far. It'll continue to be produced, and so I expect I'll see some other results. But I think that the body, if you give it the resources, will look after itself. And we know that as people who practice, knowledgeable nutrition. We know that if we eat the right foods, the body knows how to use it. If we give it poison, it staggers. So in answer to the stem cells, I haven't really gone there. I was about to get there at this time when I learned about the VSELs. And the VSELs are so much less expensive to develop and to administer that I thought, hey, that's where I want to go first. We'll see how that works. And I'll be getting that treatment probably in about 2 or 3 weeks' time in Panama. And we'll see how that works. Further out, maybe I do some stem cells, but I don't have any bits and pieces that I really feel I need stem cells pumped into. I feel that my body is pretty good, but I need a systemic kind of treatment so that the whole body is getting younger. I hope that helps.
Is this on? Oh, yeah. Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, so at RadFest in Rad City, Dr. Rosenthal, we had one booth that's doing the V-cell, but they were kind of quiet. Like, you know, in the United States, you know, there's a bit of a fear of like really publicizing what they're doing. And I was wondering if you got a chance to meet Dr. Rosenthal in Rad City.
I don't recall meeting him, and I didn't realize that V-cells were being talked about at Rad City last year.
And there's a clinic, the originating clinics in San Diego, and one of the things that they found by doing the V-cells is improved hearing for people that are having hearing loss.
Okay, so I think that's Dr. Todd's clinic that you're talking about. And Dr. Todd is involved in the treatment that I will be getting in Panama City. There's a new clinic that's being created in Panama City called Extend, X-T-E-N-D, and their website may or may not be up to date because they're just developing it, but if it's not there at the moment, it should be there within a week. And Extend is focused on a whole range of therapies that can help with longevity and rejuvenation. And their founder, a fellow by the name of Edgar Masson, is certainly somebody who needs to speak at RadFest in the future. He's brilliant, and he's working with Dr. Todd.
Kenneth, thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. You look extremely handsome today. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I wish I was this effective when I was 20.
The whole look.
The first time.
So my question is, do you have any personal experience with autoimmune diseases or disease? And if so, what interventions did you use, and how did you test the intervention and its efficacy?
Okay, so when it comes to autoimmune, I think the one thing that might fit under that category that's been a problem for me is allergies. And I had allergies to a whole range of things, including cats and dogs, and some foods and so on and so forth. And in 2012, on the 1st of February, I read a book by Caldwell Esselstyn Jr., titled Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. I read it because I had heart disease. I was worried about it. And he prescribed a diet that was simple enough for even somebody as stupid as me to follow. It was 9 words. And 4 of the words were the same, which made it possible, okay? And the word that was the same was, think about it. What do you think it might have been? I got 4 phrases. They're each 2 words long, except the fourth one is 3 words long. But the first word is the same on each one of them. Try no. No fish, no meat, no dairy, no added oils. What I now call a whole foods plant-based diet. And I switched to that. And about 2 or 3 years later, I wrote a blog which talked about the impact of that diet on me. All the side effects, you know, side effects, those horrible things, except my side effects were all great. Within a month, my cholesterol had dropped from 220 to about 170 or something. It was 136 the other day when it was measured. I had a problem with cholesterol. I had heart disease. But one of the side effects that became very noticeable is my allergies disappeared. I still suffer a little bit from pollens seasonally, but all the other allergies just disappeared. So that's the only intervention that I've had.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, I have a friend, and she had a just debilitating level of allergies. She couldn't get out of bed when it would hit her, and she's gone vegan. So your whole plant-based is more pesco-vegetarian, I take it? You eat salmon?
It's virtually, well, until about a year and a half ago, it was completely vegan.
Vegan.
Okay. A year and a half ago, I started taking a serving of salmon about every 10 days on average, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I think the same happened for her that did for you. She had an immense change in her whole life. It just completely changed her.
Well, to me, one of the things that was significant was that I'm a guy who likes to do a lot of stuff, and I'm always starting things. And I'd be in the midst of a pile of whatever, and then all of a sudden, allergies would hit me, and I would just disappear for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And that really mucks things up if you've got a new company starting or whatever else, you know. So it's really changed my life in that respect.
Hi, Kenneth. It was great hearing from you. We met at RADFest. I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
I'm kind of interested in researching different exosome stem cell treatments for sudden hearing loss that I had about a year ago. I wondered if you had heard of or even experienced yourself any improvement, or your wife, in any of the interventions that you've done in hearing, because a lot of people have hearing loss, you know, later in the progression of life, whatever, and or in your hair growth as well. I was interested in that because I know that the hearing loss is connected to the little hairs that you have in your ear. So it's in early stages, and Jean's, you know, given me some context too, but I just wondered if you'd had any.
Okay, so I've had a couple of reactions, if you wish, in the treatments to the items you're talking about. With respect to hearing, I'm taking a peptide called CD18, which is out of the Cavinson mix. I put 3 drops on my forearm and rub it in. I try and do that every day. I don't always manage to, but I think that has helped my hearing a bit.
Yeah.
With respect to hair, very interestingly, and my hairdresser is just ecstatic about this, the follistatin gene therapy has given my hair much more body. So I hope you like it.
Thank you. So I would like to get can I just Google Cavinson? Because at RADFest, Dr. Chan did recommend that I start with peptides, organ-specific peptides.
If you Google Cavinson peptides, you'll find most of them, I think. If you can't find, oh, wait a sec, I guess I didn't put the last screen up. Can we get that last screen? If you contact me, I can put you in touch with someone who can probably tell you where the CD18 is. Okay. And so the last page was just my contact information.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to contact me.
Yeah, this entire presentation will be posted on our Aegis Education page on People Unlimited. So you'll have access to that.
Yeah, I have one question for you, Kenneth, and I don't know if you would be able to answer it all, but how did you discern the safety of all these protocols that you're taking on? Because from what I'm gathering, a lot of them you're like basically one of the lab rats, or you're one of the pioneers. So how did you discern what's, you know, the safety?
So the 4 that I talked about, the first one was amniotic exosomes. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of people have had these. So I was not particularly concerned about that. The second one was the Cavinson peptides. Again, tens of thousands of people in Russia and a few thousand, at least in the United States, have had this. I was not worried about that. The gene therapy, that's a different thing. I'm probably one of the first 50 people in the world to have the minicircle gene therapy. Why did I take that? Well, I know enough biochemistry to know what it's about. I'm invested in companies that use similar technology. Basically, I know it's safe. We also know, for example, in follistatin, that you don't have to worry too much about getting too much of it. women, when they are pregnant, have incredibly high levels of follistatin because, after all, they're nurturing that fetus. And that fetus is building the bones and muscles and so on. It's also very high in people until they're full grown, because when you're developing towards an adult state, you're continually building muscle and bone, and you need the follistatin. So I really wasn't worried about that aspect of it. Does that help, Mariana?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. Terrific, terrific. Two quick things. One, how long have you been doing what you're doing? And what are you considering for testosterone? You mentioned that at the end of the presentation.
Okay, so I have been concerned about living forever since my grandfather died back in 1962. So I have been trying various approaches to try and preserve myself. Now, any of you who've been doing it for a long time realize that years and years ago, there was very little going on. I remember when Sandy and Dirk produced their book, Life Extension. I got that. That was exciting. Then I had children and I forgot about things for a while. Then I got back into it. My mother died and I said, hey, I don't want that happening. So it's been happenstance, but it really got started most recently in about 2009. There was a conference in New York City called the Longevity Conference. No, sorry, not the Longevity Conference, the, oh, you see this, I haven't quite got there because I lose the odd word. The Singularity Conference, okay? And I went to that with my son, and that got me started again. I went out to Terry Grossman's longevity clinic in Colorado, and actually, that was in 2009, and the work that Terry did in that year, or on those visits, he gave me a book of things to do, which I promptly stuck on the shelf. But I look at it now and I see that I've been doing all of the things that he recommended. He was bang on. The other big thrust forward was when I changed my diet, and all of a sudden, my world changed. I started the diet when I was 68 years old. Now I'm 20.
Can I get, yeah, so is this, somebody online has a question. They want to know if you can give them anything useful for chronic fatigue and Epstein-Barr, if you've come across anything that helps address that.
I don't really have personal experience with either of those, unfortunately. What I do say is that when it comes to energy level, I really find that certainly the mix of the exosomes, the peptides, and the gene therapy have really increased my energy level. It's significantly higher than it was 6 months ago. As Mariana was saying, I made a number of videos that are on my website, which is the Viva Sparkle that was on the screen. And those were made a year ago. I have so much more energy now than I did just a year ago. So, you know, I really think that I'm getting huge benefits from what I'm doing. It is costing a bit, but, you know, if I don't spend it on me, the kids will get it.
We're going to wrap it up, but I think we still have one question.
Yeah, just quick. I was just wondering what you're considering for testosterone.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Minicircle have developed a plasmid which will boost testosterone, and I will get that gene therapy. Now, if you're interested in being part of the trial on that, contact me and we'll see if that's possible. It will cost you some lab testing and a trip to Honduras, and maybe a trip to Austin, okay?
Yes.
I'm not sure what their program is on testosterone for women, okay? I don't know the details at this point.
Okay, great. Wow. Great. Thank you so much. I had a quick question. I had a quick question for you. What are your thoughts on rapamycin and some of the other senolytics? Do you use any of those? And you have any thoughts on it at all?
Yeah, so I just gave you 4 of the interventions I'm currently on. There are a whole range of others. Rapamycin is one that I'm considering. I have not done it yet. Just haven't got to it. For senolytics, I use Life Extension's senolytic activator. That's not considered to be necessarily very strong, but it's cheap.
It's effective, though.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I do that, but I'm also taking D plus Q, dasatinib plus quercetin, and I take about 50 milligrams of dasatinib and 1,000 milligrams of quercetin about every 6 weeks. And related to measurement, I don't know if you know Xinjiang Shi's aging SOS protocol, but he measures senescent cell burden and NAD. And so I get tested by him about every 6 months, and my senescent cell burden is very, very low.
Great. Great.
And my NAD is good.
Good. Good. What about metformin?
I took a little metformin for probably about 6 months, 250 milligrams a day. Then I got talking with Nir Barzilai and his TAME program, and I said, what levels of metformin are you going to use in that program? And he said 1,500 milligrams, and at that point I decided to opt out. So I haven't taken metformin since then. The effect it had on me, I have high fasting glucose. I'm typically 100 to 105. I have 5.3 A1C. Those numbers have not changed for 20 years. So my high fasting glucose doesn't worry me. 5.3 A1C is great. Okay?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Really appreciate this.